My name is Vamsi Madhav. I currently lead Finvu Account Aggregator, one of the earliest and leading account aggregators in the country. And I'm really very pleased to have Mahesh here. BG Mahesh is the CEO of Sahamati. And again, if you've been in the AA watching space, you couldn't have missed Mahesh, you couldn't have missed the great work that Sahamati has been doing. Welcome, Mahesh. Great to have you here.
Thank you, Vamsi. It's a great pleasure, to be actually part of the curtain raiser. I'm sure, we will have so great, your conversations today, and we'll get to know each other better.
I don't know if you remember this. Perhaps you do. But I want to go back to 2019, I think. And our very first meeting was in a small coffee shop next to your house.
Yes.
And I remember
Karachi Bakery.
Yeah, that's correct. And I remember we went by your car.
Yeah.
And one of the first things that I said, because I looked you up and I knew of you from much before our association with the A world. And you were one of the earliest, and I must say one of the perhaps most successful outcomes of the .com era I'm going back, I think 2000, around that space. Talk to us about that part of your story and
Sure.
what happened.
So now I am actually from the pre.com thing. So I got introduced to the internet, while I was studying for my MS in the US. So as early as the 1990, I got introduced to the internet, and you didn't have .com that time. You
Right.
had something called the Usenet. So special interest group mailing list. And that was the way we would interact with each other. I mean, you had groups on student visa, Unix, Java, I mean, the whole thing. And I was involved in that. And it was only I think in 1994, I got introduced to .com over there. And I started Mahesh.com.
Right.
Actually then, because for me, when I was abroad, it was that I was missing home. And I wanted the content, to read every day, which was related to India. So the way I see is, instead of being actually part of the problem, which is actually whining that we don't have the content,
Right.
I wanted to be part of the solution. So I started publishing content, either on my own where I was writing content, or linking only to all the sites which had the content. The reason it did very well was that I was on my site, I had the content which was helpful for NRIs in their everyday life. So when many people approach me on what is the idea, actually they should work on, for a startup, I said, to find the solution is easy. Have you found the problem which you want to solve in your everyday life? So I started that, and I was in the US until the end of 1999, and my blog was actually a household name. Especially if not in India, into a very large extent, but amongst the NRIs, it was known because it had all the information on how to apply for your for a F1 visa, H1 visa. How do you sponsor your parents to come to in the US, on so tourist visa, etc. So I had for that everyday problem, and it started there. So it actually grew, and it was the .com fever started afterwards. So I came back to India, actually to co-found the with few friends the .com over here in India. So I rode the wave and also the bust, but we survived. And I started my second .com, which got acquired actually in 2016.
Wow, wonderful.
Yeah.
And many of us as professionals, obviously benefited from this phenomenon called the internet.
Yes.
And funnily enough, many of those principles of how the internet spurred millions of career stories, whether professional, entrepreneurial, or stories of how businesses grew, is actually very similar to what's happening in the digital public infrastructure space, because the principles are very similar.
Correct.
In terms of how you can build digital stories. But from the world of media and content, and how that's scaled up to perhaps millions of Indians, how did you find yourself in the world of AI?
So I was actually known for being extremely patient, okay, to be actually building the product or a company. So I was involved in the .com space for like almost 20 and odd years. And I had to say this, which I skipped. The specialty of the .coms I built was the focus on Indian languages. Everybody was working on publishing in English language. And at that time, as they said, about 8% of India was comfortable in English. So almost everybody else did not have anything on the .com space to consume. Of course, now you have YouTube, etc., but not then. Now, if you see in the fintech space, about 8% of them, only like amongst the MSMEs, have access to formal credit.
Exactly.
It is strange. Even in .com 8%, and even here it was 8%. And there was a need to solve the problem. So then, few of, you had a couple of AAs, and also the think tank iSpirit, which was there. Okay, and whom I knew from a very long time. See, the ecosystem of the founder startup, especially in Bangalore, I would say that it looks large, but it's actually small. So I being one of the oldies, I knew everybody, and I wanted to move into the fintech space. And they approached me and said I should be starting a body, the not-for-profit body, to build the ecosystem. And of course, I should admit, I did not know anything about BFSI, banking, forget about DPI and AA. I had not even heard of it. So my question, actually to Govi, a friend, was, how can I actually do this? And I said, no large entity will even want to interact with me because I don't know anything about banking.
Right.
And he said, you don't have baggage. And that is the biggest advantage for you to start something like this. And we have known you that you will stay and, ensure this job is done, whether 5 years, 8 years, 10 years, that you will stay and not actually give up in between. And that's how it started. And, like from 2019, we started, even you were part of the launch.
Yes.
Okay. And at that time, I was asked to name the company. And I was actually keen that, I actually choose a Sanskrit name. And the account aggregator is about what? It is about consent.
Okay.
And hence, I actually selected Sahamati, and I actually bounced off with the ecosystem. And everybody felt the name was, like actually different, unique, and it was at home. It would be touching the heart, and it started off.
No, it's a great name, of course. We use it almost every day in our ecosystem, and it I think obviously reflects the core of what this movement is about, which is consent, and how consent is a very powerful tool. But going back to your comment about me being in that launch event of Sahamati, it's actually fascinating to see how your world collided with mine in the BFSI space, but you were in the Indian digital, how to scale up sort of usage on a day-to-day basis space. And I must be thankful to the same early entrepreneurs that got you in, because some of them were responsible for how I landed up on that launch event in 2019. Because my motivation also was to sort of look inward. Many of us in our in those days, many of us were working for companies that were building great things, but not for the Indian market.
Yeah.
We were building something for Africa or building something for the US. And there was this movement happening post Aadhaar where suddenly there was a lot of buzz about Indian digital infrastructure. And so, I mean, I think it's very vivid in my memory how in 2019 we got together. That day was, Mumbai, and we had invited several folks. And
I know.
what were your recollections of that launch?
I mean, for me, I was extremely, I mean, I should admit, I was scared and think because I had to send the invites to the chairman, MDs, and CEOs of the banks.
Right.
I was forced to send. I mean, I said, who'll reply to me? But I actually got the responses. And we thought about 100 would actually turn up.
Right.
Okay, for the event. Then we got the confirmations.
Yeah.
It started flowing then. And we got the news that at least 250 are going to attend. So we had to request the hotel to actually double the room size, double the whole thing, catering this, that, a lot of things happening.
Yeah.
I was behind the scenes actually. I wasn't in the front because I was only like about a month into the thing. And thanks to all the volunteers, who have built Sahamati, which I should acknowledge, actually were in the front of the thing, of the entire show. And we had the who's who, and we had a fantastic round table, panel of the MDs of SBI, Axis Bank, ICSI, IDFC, former MD of SBI. I mean, you couldn't have had a better launch.
Absolutely.
And the entire the entire introduction of AA to everybody in fintech. I mean, so BFSI. I mean, it happened by Nandan Ilkeni. Who else do you need than a better brand ambassador? Okay, to explain to the world that if you will have to patronize and implement AA.
Yeah.
If you want to scale up.
Absolutely.
I mean, it was a dream launch, I would say. I mean, I would say that it was and even now I see the old photos. Of course, I look far younger in that all of us. I wish I was still the same, but I'm not.
It was indeed a dream launch, but I was there. Finvu was one of the account aggregators that actually presented the power of this ecosystem post the panel discussion.
So you had a big problem there.
And we had a big problem. So it was a dream for many.
Yeah.
It was a nightmare for those of us who were waiting for the
OTE. So no, as I said that we are working on something cutting edge and bleeding edge.
Right.
But we were not sure about the OTP.
Correct.
Okay, that was the problem. You knew after OTP everything would work, but what if the OTP doesn't come?
Absolutely.
Okay, and we all were nervous. At least I was nervous. How would the show go on?
No, but it was.
So thank God it came. It did arrive.
It did, and it's fascinating to now reflect on some of this. You've been, like many of us, so close to the day-to-day grind of how to make it happen. We're going to touch 175 million consents cumulatively till date. I mean, it's been, 2021 is when the ecosystem...
September 2nd, of 2021, we had the official launch.
Correct.
So, like, say about,
little over 3 years. Yeah, 3.5 years, right?
3.5 years.
And, hopefully, we will scale up. And which brings me back to really the whole point about, we've definitely proven the concept. There's more than 500 entities in the network. There's perhaps about close to 150 million accounts that have been linked by consumers.
8% of the adult population has already linked their accounts, as we say.
And so the 8% comes again.
He's following me all everywhere, 8%.
But we want the 8% to clearly become 80%.
Yeah.
But I want to now sort of perhaps shift to bringing the focus to the next 12 to 18 months.
Yes.
So we've proven the point. Millions of our country citizens' lives are actually being touched by this, network. But we know that we are still scratching the surface of the potential.
Yeah.
We also know that there are several institutions that perhaps believe in the power of the network, but I'm not entirely sure about how stable and how well cooked it is today.
Yeah.
Yes, it's been 3.5 years, but we still know of several things that must improve. In your role now as Sahamati, what is the sense you get about how this has proven the point about it being fundamental to India's financial infrastructure?
See, I think India as a country started believing in DPI after the mega success of UPI.
Mm.
Okay, of course, you do have in few more DPI like Aadhaar, which obviously has made a huge difference. But in the case of UPI, as I always said, it is used on an everyday basis.
Correct.
So if you want to start a company, you should have a product which is required on an everyday basis. So even 5 years ago, everybody wanted the account aggregator, to be, as huge, as big, and as impactful, actually, as UPI.
Yeah.
Okay, one day it
UPI is
will
a
be
metaphor for
for everything.
anything that
Yeah.
we expect.
So,
Big.
but
Yeah.
my point is, when you are working on something very important like this, the entire foundation has to be very strong.
Right.
Okay, in the if you are in a very big rush that the articles are written about the ecosystem, you are being interviewed here and there, and then you lose the focus on what you should be working on. And as you can see that for the first few years, nobody knew about we were there at all. We were focused on working with entities to
Right.
actually come on board. Now, in the in on September 2nd, 2021, about 8 private banks actually came, and by end of June of 2022, if I'm right, it
Yep.
was like all the public sector banks. All, it is not one, but
Correct.
all 12 actually came. So we had solved to some extent on the supply side.
Yeah.
And that is a lot of supply, especially when you speak about the bank statements.
Yeah.
So all the important large banks were actually there. But obviously, you had a lot of challenges. Okay, like either the data quality, the types of accounts which had gone live. And what I say is, when you're going to be building a DPI, you need to be patient.
Yeah.
Okay, don't hurry up, but you can't be extra patient. You need to be restless.
Yeah.
Okay, that I need to have it done. Okay, I need to achieve my goal. But you need to be patient, and you also need to appreciate the entity with whom you are working, especially the large entities. They have a lot of your processes, approvals, all of that. You
Yeah.
have to, so you need to be able to change your DNA when you go from entity to entity, actually looking at in what they're doing, how big they are. You have to respect it, work with them as a partner, and actually get. So, as of today, about 160 FIPs, the entities which are providing the data, is there.
Yeah.
So if you see, about 3.5 years ago, it was 8. Obviously, we started with like actually 0, obviously, like
Yeah.
0, 1, 2, 3, but it has grown.
Yeah.
Okay, now we do have challenges, but how will entities which are already there, out there now, how will they get convinced?
Yeah.
Okay, that I have to actually push the gas pedal.
Yeah.
And now, how did it happen? Actually, because about 18 months ago, we started publishing the lending report.
Right.
See, anything, any product, like any DPI or whatever it is, it's not only the planning. We need to see that what is the impact which it has already actually caused, and what is the impact you want it.
Yeah.
In like as you said, in 1 year or 18 months, we should have that. So the impact was already there, but nobody knew about it, including us. Okay, to be fair with you. Okay,
Correct.
then the team which we have, which is actually a fantastic team Sahamati has, without which we couldn't have achieved.
Yeah.
We started actually speaking with few of the top lenders, of which about 8 lenders, volunteered to share with us how much of lending was being done.
Right.
Then it was like, I think the first report which we got in like over 6 months, it was about 20,000 crores of loans which were given.
Right.
So, I mean, even for us, it was a surprise. We didn't know. So we actually counted the zeros and we made sure that it was 20,000 crores.
Right.
Okay, then in the third edition, and after 6 months, when we actually came up with one more report, it actually has already grown to 10,000 crores for every month
Right.
of these 8 lenders.
Hmm.
But when this report came, the other important lenders who are actually live on the ecosystem,
Yeah.
but not very active in the lending, actually they took note of that number.
Correct.
And they were asked from all the way up that if already 10,000 crores of loans are being given, where are we?
Right.
So now more and more lenders want to make sure they want to share their performance when it comes to lending, uh, with us. So you will see that the third report, when we come out, the number will be far bigger.
Correct.
So unless a entity sees that how big the universe is, which has used AA, I think they don't take it seriously. They are serious, but that entire FOMO actually comes when they see all the reports in the public domain.
Correct.
Right. And as I said, the important use case in India, which is still untapped, which is lending actually to the MSME. And in at least 2 to 3 budgets, okay, the focus in the country has been how to strengthen the credit, to this important sector. And MSMEs in any country, they strengthen the GDP. So it is important for us, as all of you and we, to ensure, okay, that they are able to access or at least apply for a loan or any other service, using the A network.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head about the need for awareness.
Yes.
Through data, through reports. And, this podcast aims to sort of do its bit in terms of really bringing heightened awareness about where we are today in the A network. And, you mentioned the point about you being surprised and all of us being surprised about the numbers. And I think that has been a constant phenomenon. I go back to I think before we went full live on 2nd September, there was a period of managed rollout.
Yes.
Where a few weeks, the first institutions were watching how the network would perform. And I remember in the first 4 weeks, all of us, including the banks, being surprised about the numbers because nobody was advertising this.
Yeah.
It was just plugged in into the digital journey. And we were all surprised about how is it that Indian citizens are lapping up the use of something digital, provided it is designed well and provided it is with the right trust markers?
Yes.
The country is ready to use. So I think the two phenomenon coexist. On the one hand, we have numbers that surprise us about uptake. On the other hand, we do have lack of awareness from many institutions that have the potential to further scale this up. And so I also want to take the opportunity to maybe uh, really reflect on how stable the ecosystem is, because not many people may actually know that post 2022, when you said the public sector banks came, in 2023, the SEBI entities have come in. Right. And so today you actually have not just all the banks pretty much.
So 2.12 billion accounts in India today have
This feature.
facility of a.
Yeah.
If they want to use, the owners of these bank accounts, if they want to use it, they can. 2.12 billion is a huge number.
Is a huge number. And I also want to say that not only is the facility available live, which means that any of those 2.2 billion account owners can actually use the power of AI. I think the health of the network in terms of the supply being resilient and technically, solid. Yes, there are still pockets that can be improved, but if you look at, is it ready enough for any institution to meaningfully use it? It is absolutely ready.
Absolutely.
Right. And I think we've all found that the hero product for this network is lending. And I think unsecured lending has benefited the most. And I want to reflect upon the fact that what has happened so far is that the PDF upload of a bank statement has found a worthier alternative in account aggregator led bank statement availability being faster, cheaper, safer, etc. Um, but it doesn't end there. I think we are also seeing, and I would probably call it the side hero product, which is basically wealth management.
Yeah.
And several brokers have very powerfully brought to life the power of the network. And in India, it is not just about credit problems being solved. Even RBI itself has a financial well-being goal.
Yeah.
And we all know that just awareness of where our money is right now and how can we better deploy the money is an equally worthy goal.
Definitely.
And therefore, coming back to my point about awareness, I think the reports of Sahamati, events that Sahamati has conducted,
Samvad, which we hold every year.
Pragati as a newsletter and as a webinar, I think they hopefully will continue to grow more, and they will support all of us AAs in really letting everyone know that the supply side is very, very robust now.
Yes.
Health is getting better. Use cases have come to life, and I think that anybody that wants to do lending digital,
They can do it
money,
now, immediately.
it should actually be not even uh, a second question that comes up in their head. They should simply go ahead and use AI.
See, the thing I would say is that all the examples you gave of what we have been doing, Pragati series, we are doing Samvad, everything is B2B.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I would say that it is by design.
Yeah.
Okay. It is by design because we wanted to wait until this ecosystem is actually, like almost cooked, etc. Even before we carry out the B2C campaign.
Right.
Okay. Now, I think in this calendar year of 2025, I think it is the right time to start the B2C in a phased manner. It isn't that we go and splash the whole town. The thing, see, so this is the amount of lending which is happening is without having any B2C campaign from our side.
Right.
Of course, the Reserve Bank of India has carried few actually campaigns on AA, which has done very well. But ecosystem has to do actually a lot more. The stability, as you said, has increased, has improved. The health has improved. Yes, it has to improve more. It is because the health has improved. You are seeing the amount of lending which is being done has also improved. And we were given a target, in the month of, I think, March, if I'm right. Because every month lending which is happening is about 10,000 crores, and it should actually be scaling up to 50,000 crores for every month. So hence, internally we have a program now named Velocity 5x. Okay, now we are more interested in the impact. Now, whether how much the concerns have to grow, the data pools have to grow is actually a byproduct of that. Okay, we want to see the usage for the end product lending, the wealth management, compliance for onboarding the new customers. Ministries actually using AA now has to increase, and automatically you will see everything else will scale. And all this has happened only thanks to the direction and the guiding from all the regulators and Ministry of Finance. Without their support, there was no way this entire ecosystem would have grown. Of course, everybody else has also played a role. The account aggregators, the TSPs, everybody has played a role, but you do require the full support from the regulators.
And Velocity 5x, I think, is great news
Yeah.
for us at Finvu as well. I think we are all in terms of doing what we can to grow the overall pie, because uh, that is where growth
Yeah.
for individual for-profit players will come in.
Yes.
And you mentioned very briefly upon the role of TSPs, as you just spoke about, and I think that's the other, I would say, ingredient to this entire recipe.
Yeah.
So you've got the protocol which works. You've got the supply side support, and we will speak about some of the initiatives that need to be heightened for even better support from the supply side. We know there are still some hops to go, but like you said, around 60 odd FIPs, all the different types of financial information available. The health of that is getting better by the day. If there are pockets of ill health, it is still pockets. I think there are several large institutions that have really invested in systems. But the TSPs sort of complete the story, because we as an account aggregator, our role, as we all know, I'm not wanting to preach to the choir here, but we are data blind.
Yes.
We are an NBFC AA. Our job is to really manage consents for citizens. We are accountable to citizens to manage uh, their intentions, or whether they want to give data, don't want to give data, if they want to revoke it. We are the point of contact. But after that, our job is fundamentally to
Transfer that.
essentially be part of the pipe.
Yeah.
And it's the TSPs that bring several of those use cases to life by being outsourced entities for the regulated entities. And I know Sahamati nurtures the TSP ecosystem. We work with our own group company, which is FinFactor, which is a TSP. In addition to supporting several other TSPs that are out there in the Sahamati ecosystem. And so I think that the scale up of the 5x of Velocity 5x
will depend a lot on TSPs.
will depend a lot on all of these coming through. And again, going back to those of you who are here who want to get started or have gotten started but want to scale up from 1 to 10, I think it's all available in terms of actually finding the right partner, whether it's the right AA, whether it's the right TSP, and building on what's already been done by those 8 lenders or maybe the top 30, 40 institutions. So Mahesh, I think several folks would love to hear more about the impact that AA has delivered. You spoke earlier about 8 lenders that have really shared the data, and therefore you perhaps have some insight into what is the impact that they have delivered and how have they gone about it.
So we'll speak about lending, but I want to say that few of the use cases which we ecosystem as a whole hadn't even thought of that it would happen very early. Now the first one I want to speak is about the Rural Development Ministry, MORD. They approached us, I would say about 2.5 years ago, that they see AA extremely useful for them, and we asked how.
Right.
I mean, we are always going only after banks, NBFCs, RIAs, and all of that. Then they explained that they have a scheme, where the trainers or a training institute is paid for upskilling, and they are actually people, and the trainers are actually paid only when the trainees or the ones who got upskilled have a job for at least 3 months.
Right.
So how does the ministry confirm that somebody has found a job, etc., etc.? So everybody had to submit the bank statements. So you can just imagine in a large country like ours, the number of people who are getting upskilled, who are beneficiaries of the scheme, the number of bank statements which the ministry will receive, and I'm not sure who will look into each bank statement and see if they were employed for 3 months or not. And also, when you actually get the hard copy of the bank statement, I'm not talking about this particular scheme. For every use case, lending or something, it is not tamper-free. Right? There is an element of doubt, or more than an element of doubt, because you have something called actually Photoshop and etc., where people are very creative in they are actually changing things. So they were interested to see how can they get access to the bank statement of the beneficiaries, obviously with the consent of the beneficiary. And even though they will have a digital copy of the statement, there is no need for somebody to manually actually see if somebody had got a job for 3 months. The model itself would flag, like, of the 1,000 beneficiaries, about 14 of them we see haven't been employed for 3 months. Instead of somebody seeing all the 1,000 bank statements, which after some time is actually a fatigue. I mean, you'll be simply skimming the bank statement. So that use case, which was launched as a pilot, was so hot that in our annual event of Samvat 2023, the Joint Secretary of MOD himself, I mean, we requested him to demo it. The second impact story, which I would like to share, a very large NBFC, which is extremely successful. Okay, they started using AA in a extremely serious way, deep way, where they paid the attention to every actually pixel of the thing where AA can be used, etc. And the amount of the disbursement, the loans which they give every month, increased by about 310 crores. It increased.
I see.
Okay, so which obviously it is impactful, and they want to see how it can increase actually more. Okay, because if more loans are being dispersed, it also helps the economy, because the money is actually flowing. So DPI very clearly will play an important role, especially when it actually comes to credit access or any other financial product. In the insurance in India, we know the entire penetration is actually quite low. I think we are yet to crack how AI can be used to increase the penetration. In my opinion, it will happen, but it will happen step by step, not overnight. So 1,000% it increases. We can do it, but we have seen by end of 2024, few of the insurance companies said that half of the applications they get when they buy the policy, okay, were sharing the few of the documents, example bank statement, using AI. So half of the applications for insurance using AA with few insurers, I'm not talking about the insurance thing, is actually good news. So I'm just saying that the more we interact with the entities and we speak to them, and when they share some things, it is actually not only impactful stories, but it is mind blowing. That I didn't know that 50% of the applications they received used AA. And when it actually comes to conversion, it increased by about 8 to 10% because they use AI. And in whether it is insurance or lending or whatever, I think in this digital world, the DPI world, the UPI world, we are very impatient. We want instant results. So that what we speak about, the TAT, the turnaround time, everybody wants to know immediately. I want to, when I apply for a loan, ideally I want it approved instantly, and I want the money in my account, which happens actually in a few of the use cases. But when you are when you want to buy a car or a scooter or something, when you see that, you want actually that car or the bike in your house that evening. Okay, because it's not like, again, fill forms come after 1 week. So a large bank which ran a pilot was able to do the car loan get disbursement end to end in 30 minutes. Okay, so it improves the success of many of the products. the money is flowing in the economy, sooner than later. Okay, and the amount of the fraud, if at all, actually shrinks to zero. Okay, in lending, we have heard anywhere from the bank statement, it is 4 to 8%, and I've heard of 15%, 20%,
Yeah.
with few NBFCs, because the entire bank statement is actually doctored. They have to use it. Okay, now what they do is they are spending a lot of time. They are spending a lot of money, the resources, okay, to see if the information shared from the customer is free of fraud. Now everything happens automatically, seamlessly, and it has shrunk to zero. Okay, and then another one I want to say, another large bank, says that when it comes to a priority sector lending, which is actually a target for many of the entities,
Right.
their disbursement increased by 30%. So it helps, and this is only the beginning. They're at to it. They've only scratched the surface. So when all the public sector banks, for example, have a pipe for every financial product, you will see the impact being a lot more. Now, why priorities sector lending is important? Of course, see, India is a very diverse country. We speak about about the tier 1 and so tier 2, but how many of us we speak about 3 and 4?
Yeah.
It is there, but we don't even speak about it.
Yeah.
But if these actually products have to go to tier 3, tier 4, A will play a very important role, and these entities will also be easily able to meet their priority sector targets. Okay, it is not about they're only obligated, okay, to be serving in this entire segment, but they also have targets. So this end-to-end digital, which is powered by AA, will ensure they're able to meet the targets. Then, if you look at the insurance companies, the thing what I know is that, when they have to, again, when you apply for a insurance thing, they
Yeah.
usually ask you for the salary disclosure.
Yeah.
Okay, like if it is life insurance, and usually you are asked about all these things only when you go to their office. Nobody tells in advance you bring all these documents.
Yep.
So then you actually go back and ask your HR department. It delays things, and more importantly, you will have drop-offs. So somebody who was willing to buy insurance will say, okay, now leave, I need to bring all these documents. We'll see after 1 month, okay, 2 months, or the following year. So you have drop-offs.
Yeah.
So, okay, the entire drop-offs, okay, so actually the drop in drop-offs, okay, has been like, so 40%. Okay, because the end-to-end was like actually your digital, the entire consent, the way you give through A's, and so it has been helping, yeah, in everything. And we also have seen that we have interviewed few of the beneficiaries, not the lenders, not the
The end
A's,
users.
the end users.
Yeah.
I would say not the beneficiaries, the end users, and it is also shared on our site. Like we had somebody in Delhi in that NCR near region. We asked him to explain how AI has helped, and I mean, he speaks in his native language from the heart, and I thought his interview was the best I have ever seen. It is there was no need to have a brand ambassador to come and speak over. I mean, he just said, "I went to the bank. I actually got the OTP. Yeah, button daba diya, this, and it actually came. There was no need for me to give any physical documents." And he was a small vendor, very small. I think the loan he had applied was for some 12,000 rupees or something like that.
No, absolutely. No, thanks, Mahesh, for sharing those very powerful stories. As you probably know, Finvu AA has had the opportunity and the privilege of being a part of many of those stories. And as I reflect upon, just to add to some of the stories you added, what are the stories or the trends that we are seeing that distinguish the great practitioners of AA versus those that haven't yet started the journey. I'll probably break it up into the broad three categories of use cases and license types, right? And what am I seeing? Um, an overarching, I think, trend we see now is, especially in the last few months, and I think it will go on, is deep focus on success rate. I'm often reminded of the Vidya Balan, quote in that entertainment movie. She said, "What matters the most?" She said, "Entertainment, entertainment, entertainment." I think pretty much in our ecosystem, we are hearing that if there's one word that the best practitioners are focusing on, it's success rate, success rate, success rate. Particularly if you look at digital lending as opposed to phygital or assisted. And if you look at the big banks or even mid-sized banks, NBFCs, several of the success stories are indeed from the NBFCs, and we work with several of them that have very progressively embedded this in their digital journeys, taken the hit of initially observing what the success rate is, but then graduating to figuring out how to work with their TSPs and AAs like us on bettering that success rate.
Correct.
So we are seeing that the penetration rate of AA usage can be very low to begin with, but it quickly graduates to very high the moment the team inside gets a handle on the success rate through data, through APIs. For example, the Sahamati SaaS dashboard has been very
For
useful
the health of APIs.
for getting part of that success rate story.
Yeah.
AAs like us are being constantly asked, and we are constantly looking at how to improve that visibility into success rate. So one trend we see is better the visibility in success rate, better the scale up of AA penetration. Right in digital
Observability is important.
observability is very important. And in that same digital lending use case, to your last point about the importance of chief risk officers and risk, I mean, we all know today unsecured lending is going through a phase where the regulators are really watching it very closely to prevent it from becoming too much of a
Liability.
societal risk.
Yeah.
And monitoring of existing loans is therefore super critical.
Yeah.
And one of the powers of the AA network in terms of the journey that we are seeing is the multi-consent journey.
Yeah.
So several of the risk teams are looking at how to bolt in consent not just for underwriting an initial application and making an offer, but
monitoring.
consent for monitoring. And I think a holistic view of user experience where you are able to take these multiple consents
Yeah.
without making the touch points seem too difficult.
Yes.
I think that's one key trend. And I think the story where someone is able to work closely with their AA, closely with their TSP, finding a faster path to A scale versus someone who's still not yet investing in that thinking with their A and TSP. That's one trend we are seeing. I think the second trend we are seeing is assisted journeys are really going to grow. One of the
A reality. Phygital in India is a reality.
is a reality.
So we should focus on that.
Absolutely. And I think there the second S word that we have seen become very critical is support.
Yeah.
Because when the field force is with a customer physically as opposed to a digital journey, digital journey, it's all very technical, digital, there's a lot of data, but in a phygital journey, it's real life. It's like you and me speaking here, and we have to deal with emotions of real people. And if AA journeys are part of that interaction, like we've seen in some of the cases that you mentioned, I'm sure several of the large 8 lenders are those where they've done auto loans, like you said. It's a very physical store journey. Consumer durables, like two-wheeler loans. And so we find that the trend is that people want better support.
Yes.
They want real-time, proactive support, but also reactive support because there's a customer waiting.
Support when you're just saying that for AAs, I mean, now it may not be happening. I am speaking about a story which happened 2 years ago, which I heard from Finvu actually. So somebody had applied for a loan using AA,
Right.
and he didn't get the loan. Okay, so he wrote an email to Finvu that I didn't get the loan. Why is that?
Why is that?
So, so the support can be not just about thing. I think everybody is going to come to the AA
Absolutely.
for everything, and you'll have to handle that.
We'll have to handle that. And I think our take on that is that we are licensed in order to fundamentally serve the citizen. While obviously the FIUs and the FIPs, financial information users, which is the lenders, for example, or the financial information providers, which is the banks where the citizens have accounts, are very important in terms of how we stitch our offerings into their offerings. Ultimately, we have to provide end user support for any query that may come up. We have to obviously do better than just supporting, we have to educate them. And we are working on some things that we can do to educate citizens in the journey,
Yes.
in our digital front ends. It's a continuous process, but that's a trend we are seeing. And those lenders that also want physical or phygital journeys to be plugged in, they also need support.
Yes.
They need data-driven support. So I think success rate on the one hand, deep focus on success rate, support on the other hand, a deep focus on that for particularly a lot of these assisted journeys where there are real consumers waiting. And we are seeing that, while AA rates of usage are going up as compared to, say, PDF rates or net
Yes.
banking rates, the reality is that they will continue to exist in one
For some more time.
for some more time.
Some more time.
And so we are working on how to work closely
Yeah.
to enable easy shifts between journeys also, where the TSPs can effect some of those easy shifts, because ultimately nobody wants to lose the consumer.
Yeah.
So if a success rate of an AA is still not 100%, how do you still not lose the consumer?
Yeah.
And so how can you work closely on seamless handoffs? So we're seeing a trend where several progressive lenders are thinking about AA, but not thinking about just AA. They're also thinking about AA as a part of the entire journey,
Right.
where you can have other things. And the last point which comes to my mind, which is I think very, very crucial, and we've been part of those use cases where you said whether it is government schemes or whether it is employers looking at insider trading verification.
Yes.
These are not
So we call it compliance use case.
compliance use cases or profile augmentation use cases, etc. And in some of these, you will find that they are done by brokers and SEBI entities who also want to use AA for the core use case of providing financial well-being.
Yeah.
That's a recurring use case. The data fetches must work seamlessly every day. And if you look at the overall quantum of usage in terms of data fetches, obviously recurring use cases for loan monitoring or recurring uses for wealth tracking will become a big part of how consumers
the
view
well-being.
AA for the well-being, right? Their experience of AA. So we are seeing that there is a focus on scalability. So for us, just to round up, what we are seeing that reliability is a very big factor that many institutions want from AAs. In fact, our tagline is building India's most reliable AA. We're building what we believe is going to be a very reliable AA. And reliability stands for 3 S's: success rate, support, scalability. I think if we are able to deliver that, I think we'll find a lot of more such stories.
Yeah, there'll be a lot more stories. In fact, we are going to get more stories when we are able to speak with the end users. Okay, of course, we do have entities, the FIUs, what we call the ones who are providing the financial product, who are happy to share. But I think if we are able to speak to a lot more end users, I think the way they narrate the story, which comes from the heart, will be very interesting. And even when you spoke about providing the support either to the end user or to the entity, I would say that to be able to provide in the native language will become important. That is when the scalability comes. Because
So
you need to
vernacular.
vernacular is something. I mean, I'm biased because I worked 20 years in languages.
Right.
That was the opportunity, and the fact is that I mean, the basic English and all that is fine.
Correct.
But if they need to see anybody who wants to use a product, okay, they need what the most, the trust.
Yeah.
So sometimes when you speak to them in their language, it
Naturally.
increases the trust.
Great point.
Okay.
And you said speak to them, and I was going to say voice is also as important as vernacular.
Yes.
So you need to sort of have vernacular and voice interfaces.
Yes.
And we are working on some of those. Hopefully, we'll be able to find real life stories, but fully agree with you.
Yeah.
So Velocity 5x is a great goal, Mahesh, for all of us to put our shoulders to that wheel. But let's talk about, what the roadmap is that will get us there in terms of what Sahamati is working on, therefore what all of us as AAs need to be a part of. And in particular, I think we all know that there are, I think, two key challenges perhaps that the roadmap must involve solutions for. One is the challenge of all the A's being able to guarantee to citizens that citizens can choose which, FIPs on any of the A's, and they must be able to exercise that choice. Right?
Yeah.
So that interconnection challenge
Exactly.
exists today. That is one. And the other is this growth in democratization of data must not become a fraud risk. It must not become a playground for fraudsters. And we know in this country how creative fraudsters are,
The Jamtaras.
the Jamtaras of the world. And I think data becomes very, very attractive to them.
Yes.
So we need guardrails for growth. So if you can speak about what's cooking in Sahamati as a set of roadmap items for getting growth in Project Velocity 5x, but solving existing challenges and giving guardrails.
So the actually the goal we have, the roadmap we have for us for Sahamati is actually not only for Sahamati. It is actually the goals which we are setting for all of you, for all of us,
All of us.
again, so we all do work together, and I always say that when everybody asks us that how do we work on governance, etc., I would say that we are a classic example of participatory governance.
Right.
It is in fact all the work what you have seen which is in the public domain or which is not in the public domain. Yes, we are responsible for many of those, but we only start or initiate something, but we involve the participants to actually deliberate amongst themselves to actually come at a decision, which I'll explain on a few things. Now, the first actually target for Velocity 5x would be, I would say, the B2C has to increase from some the awareness, because yes, there are a lot of people who know about a account aggregator, they know, but I think many know because they speak to us, the friends or relatives, or they've gone elsewhere to apply for a loan or the wealth management.
Yeah.
Now, for example, when it is about UPI, whether somebody is not using it on everyday basis, but I think everybody knows about UPI.
Yeah.
So we have to work a lot. Okay,
True.
that's a very, very actually huge task which we have actually
Yeah.
to reach the population at large, to tell not about you must use AA exists. There is something called
Yes.
account aggregator. There is something called account aggregator, and if you are going to apply for a loan, you are going to a financial planner, insist that I will share with you the data using an account aggregator.
Right.
Okay, so over there we need to carry actually the campaigns for which we will involve the participants. It's not that we on our own, in silo actually come up with the storyline.
Right.
Because ultimately, when we do the B2C campaign, it is not about Sahamati. Nobody's going to talk, about us. They're going to talk about account aggregators.
True.
So we want to make sure the storyline we get gels with the account aggregators.
Right.
Okay, and the FIUs, etc. Then for the past few years, we have had a membership, a program which is with the account aggregators and the TSPs, because we were building the ecosystem with the help of AAs, account aggregators, and the technology service providers. So we had a membership program which is it is about the code of conduct if you participate in this ecosystem, etc., etc., etc. But the heart of it was what? You are obligated, okay, to the end consumer. You are accountable to the end consumer. Okay, that all of that was there. And over the last 18 months, the number of the financial information providers, which is FIPs, and the financial information users, FIUs, have grown, which is now around 650. So we have just few days ago launched the program for them, a membership for them, though we are engaged with them very closely from the onboarding, to the scale up, etc. Now we want them to become the members of Sahamati.
More formally, basically.
It should be formal,
Yeah.
okay, because now everybody should be accountable, to the end consumer. Like if I'm asking for the bank statement, I want my FIP, the bank, to okay, deliver my bank statement seamlessly, which is where what you said, that it would have improved the success rate.
Exactly.
And as the success rate improves, we do not want all of you to be receiving a lot of support calls.
Exactly.
Because if it is improving, we don't need the support. I mean,
Exactly.
we will always need the support, but it has to come down.
And I want to add, I think the quality of the data
Yeah,
is as much
very important.
an important point.
It is, yeah,
So,
because if you get which is not a true representation of your data,
exactly.
the FI is not able to make use of.
Exactly.
That's where we have something with the help of the ecosystem. We have launched something called the fair use. So you have the use cases in the account aggregator ecosystem. And the way I say is, when they ask me what is fair use, it is a guardrail inside every use case. Okay, like if I'm applying for a loan, how much of the data, how much, like example, the period of bank statement are you allowed to ask me as a lender? Like, is it only 1 year? Okay, 1.5 year. It can't be 15 years. If you are going to be monitoring, my account, it should be for, is it only for the period of the loan?
Yeah.
Or for more.
Correct.
So all this was, I mean, everybody can say you should have had the fair use on the first day, but we were focused on use. Right, the ecosystem had to be used.
Right.
Okay, then it scaled up.
Correct.
Right, so now we require the guardrail. Now, when somebody asks, how come you require fair use? It is not only being fair to the FIP who is actually giving the data, especially the large entities, the load on them increases. So it is a challenge.
Yeah.
And I would really appreciate that if the ecosystem at large appreciates what the FIPs are delivering. Okay, like it is not only that to say that, oh, it is my statement, you are obligated to give, but please understand about how much of the infra they have to scale also, right?
Right.
But I wanted to say the fair use is not about being fair only to the FIP. I would say that everybody will appreciate when we say the fair use rules, what we have is being fair to the end user.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
you all as an account aggregator,
Yeah.
you are serving the end user.
Correct.
So I always said that AAs should warn the end user that if a FIU is asking for more data than required.
Yeah.
Okay, and this was my my wish in the early days. But that the ecosystem said we need the fair use.
Yeah.
So now we have about few fair use templates for the lending, for the wealth management, which only which has the upper bound, upper limit for example, how much of information, what period, the frequency, etc.
Yeah.
And the fair use is a thing which will keep on continue evolving, because new use cases come, and is will be very important. We're going to work with all of you in this year.
Yeah. And I'm just interrupting because very happy to add that the Finvu contribution to the fair use rules is not only in implementing those rules as something called consent guard. That
Correct.
we actually last year, I think the fair use rules got notified in May. I think May,
Approximately
June
that.
last year, and right from actually day one. In fact, a little earlier than that, Finvu had actually started working on a technical way to implement those rules, and very happy and pleased to also now contribute that to the
Back to the
Sahamati,
ecosystem.
back to the ecosystem.
Ecosystem.
And I think Sahamati
So
is
Finvu's contribution is not only that. I must say that in the we have something called the central registry.
right.
So the first version of the code was donated by Finvu to the ecosystem.
Correct.
So, and there are so many others in the ecosystem who will contribute.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it is due to that, I would say, that it actually took off.
Correct.
We were all focused on the foundation.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
it looks now very obvious. Oh, this is just a central registry. Oh, it's a fair use.
Yeah.
Right. But
Yeah.
everything had to be kicked off at the right time of the journey.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And the community must come together
Yeah.
on some of these points like fair use, because these are useful for everyone to grow the business.
Exactly.
Otherwise, they will sort of be dampeners for overall growth.
Yes. No, because in any of these ecosystems, if there is a slight doubt,
Yes.
okay, the damage is a lot.
Correct.
Okay, so now we have reached a stage. Now we have to focus that a lot, and in any of these fields, the digital fields, not only actually financial, you have frauds. So anti-fraud becomes important, and this ecosystem requires new use cases. Okay, a modification or a upgradation of the existing use cases. That's where we thought it was the right time to launch Sahamati Labs. Okay, it is the R&D division of Sahamati, where again we will initiate few things, but then each of you will be pulled into that, and we'll see how it can be strengthened, and it is back into the ecosystem. So one of the first programs which we are about to launch, which is called IKEA, which means oneness, is the combination or the intersection of AI and open finance.
Right.
Which sounds obvious. Okay, everything sounds obvious, but somebody has to do it.
Yeah.
Okay, because it's very easy to tell, oh, you should use Gen AI and everything will solve. But we have to go many levels actually down. But for that, first we have to define the problem. Okay, so we are speaking with the entities to understand about the anti-fraud challenges, for example, what they have. If a use case is delivering as they are actually thought of, or if it has a few challenges. So all these things we are going to be working in Sahamati Labs, and it is for this ecosystem in India, or anybody who wants to make use of it. We are telling it's all open source, which is one. The other huge challenge which we have today is a customer is not able to use an account aggregator of their choice. Okay, we believe the customer is in the center of any TPI. Now, when you look at UPI, when you go into a shop, okay, they don't say that we will accept the payments from a particular UPI app. You can use any UPI app. So we also want to see to that a customer is able to use any account aggregator, okay, to share their financial data. So currently the architecture, what is there, what we call is a federated architecture, which means each FIP has to integrate or connect separately with each account aggregator. It was by design.
Yeah.
Okay, so which I think is good. I mean, works But when it actually, when you speak about scaling and all of that, the ecosystem said, no, we want it to have a router in between, okay, by which each entity will speak to only the router and it will route the traffic. So for the past about 5 months, we have started a project, or no, which is called SahamatiNet, which is a router, and it has various applications built over it, like the billing, SLA, observability, everything is part of it, by which again the participants actually gained with it. But it is still being built. The POC has started, and we'll be going to share the results of it. Yeah, and even Finvu is participating, by the way.
Yeah.
As you know.
Yeah.
So thanks to you all in this actually POC. So we will share the results of SahamatiNet with all of you, okay, then with the regulator, and we will seek their support, okay, to see to that, we want to take it to production, which is not about us, but it is to help the end consumer. And of course, I spoke about the B2C is the thing. So with all of this, we feel that, which boils down finally to 5x, velocity 5. We may do anything under the hood, but what is the impact? Okay, can we actually grow the lending, for each month, per month, from the current 10,000 crore to 50,000 crore? Okay, that is our end goal for the calendar year. So for that, we have to do, all of these. That is our thing, and by which we say that the data will be, okay, you're truly democratized, which means the data principal is able to take the data and go anywhere else and seek a financial service, which even now or in the past, it was possible, but it had a lot of friction, and we want to remove that friction.
Super. So I think if any of you is watching this,
I hope so.
And had doubts about whether this year is the right year to scale up your AA program, I think what Mahesh is saying is join Velocity 5X.
Yes.
And I think our goal is to really, through this conversation, I suppose, set some trust markers, set some doubts at rest with respect to, is the ecosystem ready to scale up? And am I, as say a lender or as a wealth manager, actually getting my return on the money and the time that I'm going to put into an AI-led digital transformation? And hopefully we have managed to set those doubts at rest by speaking about the fact that Sahamati and Finvu AA, along with the ecosystem of the financial information providers who are very clearly investing in bettering the supply side health, along with the technology service providers who have become extremely knowledgeable about how to quickly deliver an AI-led journey in rapid time for any of the lenders. And I think the vast array of people within Sahamati, uh, regulatory bodies, technical advisors.
And I should also include the governance, what we have structures, which is a participatory. We have the committees, councils who are actually contributing a lot, and not to forget our excellent governing council, the advisory council,
Exactly.
which is actually guiding us, the whole ecosystem.
Exactly.
Large.
And I think a lot of those uh, deep focus on success rates, on bringing to life assisted journeys in terms of better user experience, on improving grievance redressal and consumer education. I think this is the year where all of these things is going to get a 5x jump, so that the growth happens a 5x jump. And so we invite all of you to sort of join the party and talk to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Vamsi. It was great
Thank
talking
you.
to you.